The penthouse ballroom was filled with beautiful women, 50 of them. Carefully selected, vetted by lawyers. Background checked. All here for one reason. To audition for the role of wife to Alexander Blackwell. Alexander Blackwell Jr., the billionaire's son. Handsome, successful, emotionally unavailable. His mother, Vivian Blackwell, stood at the center of the room like a monarch surveying her court. "Welcome, ladies," she said, her voice cold as ice. "Only one of you will become Mrs. Blackwell. The others, well, you'll all go home with a generous consolation prize." The women smiled nervously. None of them knew what was really happening. "Here are the requirements," Vivian continued, clicking a remote. A screen displayed the criteria. Age, 22 to 32 education. Top 20 universities only. Family wealth. Minimum $500 million net worth. Beauty. Professional standards fertility. Medically confirmed obedience. Demonstrate ability to follow instructions. We will test you over 3 days. Intelligence tests. Loyalty tests. Physical evaluations. Psychological assessments. Cooking demonstrations. Style critiques. Etiquette competitions. One woman raised her hand. "Senora M. Blackwell, what about love? Shouldn't your son marry for love?" Vivian smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Love is a luxury item, dear. Like champagne, nice at parties. But it doesn't run a business. It doesn't produce heirs. It doesn't maintain a family legacy." She paused. "And, frankly, Alexander stopped believing in love a long time ago." Over the next 3 days, the women were tested relentlessly. IQ tests. Physical examinations which felt uncomfortably invasive. Cooking competitions where Vivian tasted their food and criticized their technique. Style consultations where her personal stylist literally undressed them and redressed them in designer clothes. Selected by the Blackwell family. One woman, Sarah, from a wealthy tech family, began to see the pattern. This wasn't about finding a wife. This was about finding a possession. She watched as Vivian eliminated woman after woman for minor infractions. Too opinionated. Not docile enough. Laughed too loudly. Made eye contact when she should have been listening. By day 2, 30 women had been eliminated. By day 3, only 5 remained. On the final day, the women were brought to meet Alexander himself. He was handsome, polished, dead behind the eyes. He didn't speak, just sat while his mother paraded the remaining women in front of him like cattle at an auction. "This is Gabrielle," Vivian said, presenting a stunning woman with perfect blonde hair. "She speaks 5 languages. Her family owns half of Monaco." Alexander nodded. "Nothing more. This is Sienna. Harvard graduate. Comes from impeccable stock. Her mother was a beauty queen." Nod. "This is Sarah. Tech mogul family. But perhaps too independent." Vivian's eyes narrowed at Sarah. And that's when Sarah understood something darker. Alexander wasn't choosing. He was being chosen for. His mother was selecting a wife the way she'd select a broodmare based on bloodline, obedience, and genetic potential. On the final evening, Alexander did something unexpected. He spoke. "I'm not marrying any of you." The room went silent. "Mother, I appreciate the effort, but I'm done. I'm done with auditions. I'm done with performance. I'm done with pretending I want something I don't want." Vivian's face turned cold. "You're 42 years old, Alexander. You've wasted enough time on rebellion." "I'm not rebelling," he said quietly. "I'm just done. He stood up, and for the first time in his entire life, he walked away from his mother's expectations. He walked toward the door. Vivian's voice cut through the room. "Leave this family, and you leave your fortune, your name, everything." Alexander paused. For one moment, the weight of that threat visibly crushed him. Then he kept walking. 6 months later, Alexander was living in a small apartment in Brooklyn. He was working as a bartender at a dive bar. He was happy. It wasn't the happiness of luxury or power. It was the happiness of choice. He met a woman named Emma, ordinary, kind, with no family fortune at that dive bar. She didn't know who he was. She didn't care that he'd lost everything. She loved him because he made her laugh. And one night, over cheap beer and cheaper pizza, Alexander realized something his mother never understood. The most valuable thing a person can have is the freedom to choose, even if the choice costs everything. Vivian Blackwell held auditions to find a wife for her son. She tested 50 women, but she never tested the one thing that mattered, his freedom. Sometimes the wealthiest people are the poorest in spirit, and sometimes the richest choice is giving it all up.